Hello and welcome to week 12 in Introduction to Psychology of Personality. Woo! Getting summer brain coming in already. So, what a neat chapter. This is, we're in chapter 14 where we're going to be looking at yoga and Buddhism as pathways to psychology development. This is, this is when we in the West really need to set aside all of our presumptions that we know things. This is a different mindset. It's really an Eastern mindset, very different than even the way we process information. And that's why I really like teaching this course with this particular textbook, this particular emphasis on multicultural perspectives on personality. So here we have looking at yoga, which you might be familiar with, and Buddhism, which you might be familiar with, and looking at the tenets of those particular practices as ways in which individuals develop their personality, looking at them from the Eastern perspective as best as that we can. We as individuals raised in the West, if you've been raised in the West, not being exclusive here, there may be individuals in our learning community here who totally get this because their upbringing was very much like this. So it'd be great to hear from that perspective. But the many of us, maybe most of us, have to stretch to get sort of an understanding of these things. And we have to keep a watch out for our own ethnocentricity of dispelling something simply because it's mystical from our perspective, or it seems fabricated, or it just seems woo-woo, or anything, stuff like that. And I mean that in no disrespect at all. That is an ethnocentric point of view that many people might have entering into an analysis of these kinds of topics. So we're going to be looking at some of the stuff here in the discussion. I'm having you look at the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Pathway. So let's take a look. I prepared some graphics right out of the course book here. These are the Noble Eightfold Path. And truthfully, the Four Noble Truths. I had my, that was a little backwards there for a second. I advanced to the next slide. Sorry, little retake here. Let's look at the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are: life has inevitable suffering. There is a cause to our suffering. It is not random. There is an end to suffering. And the end to suffering is contained in the Eightfold Path. This spiritual, psychological, and behavioral discipline that is captured within the Eightfold Path. Hence the next graphic. We have the Noble Eightfold Path. And if you look at each one of these, this is the contemplation as we approach the challenges that we have in our life. How do we do these in a way in order to minimize pain and suffering? And it sort of has to do with decisions that we make about what is right and wrong. But it's divided in 8 different ways. So what is the right viewpoint on this particular situation? What is the right intention in approaching a situation? What are the right words or the right approach, the right sentence? What is the right action? What do I do about this? What is the right livelihood? Here's a big one, the right way in which I lead my life. What is the right effort? Where do I put my energies? What is the right concentration? Focusing my thoughts on a particular situation or solution. And then the right mindfulness, awareness of all factors around me that influence that situation. You probably imagine an individual that specifically goes through the addressing of suffering in their own lives and in others with that model of reflecting deeply upon the right mindfulness, the right lifestyle, the right speech, the right viewpoint, all of these things, you can see that you're dedicating sort of a practice of dedicating a lot more thought and contemplation in order to come up with the right action, one of those. And certainly leading that, the other side of that, as I was making my way around that circle, the other side were a lot more about the kind of place that you're at, the person you are, the kind of lifestyle that you're leading, and then you go into that viewpoint, intention, speech, action. Leading the lifestyle leads to more right, leading the right lifestyle leads to more right decisions in terms of viewpoint, speech, action, those kinds of things. So very, very powerful set of ideas coming from Buddhism in there. The next thing that I'm having you look at, I'm not going to take a stab at this name, but is the 5 hindrances. These are the 5 hindrances from us developing our true nature. And we'll take a look at that. The 5 hindrances being ignorance. This is a lack of knowledge. Okay, it's not stupidity. This is not what this is about. We often use the word ignorance to describe someone we think, has low intelligence, but ignorance is a lack of knowledge. We can see that as a hindrance, but we see sense of attachment. Now, attachment here often refers to the attachment to ideas. Now, very relevant in our society right now is the notion that people are very deeply attached to, let's say, political ideas that are going on. That attachment actually creates a hindrance to the development of their ignorance. So we can address ignorance. It's called learning. It's called looking things up. It's open mind, those kinds of But if you have an attachment to a certain number of ideas, certain ideas because it's part of your tribe or it's closely associated with other values that you have, this pathway says that those are actually hindrances to our development, and I couldn't agree more. Desire, this is the compulsion to want more and want things, maybe want things that you shouldn't have. Hate, the opposite of love. I mean, an intense word is hate. And a sense of personality. Oh boy, does this one is probably the greatest of all challenges for Western thinkers. Western thinkers kind of epitomized in Freud's view, the id, the ego, and the superego construct the personality within Freud's theory. The ego, mistranslated and often misunderstood from its original German in Freud's writing, is not the sense of I'm bigger than other people that we might think of in ego, although ego development can produce that. Ego is the same as the word I. It's the individual person. I, like in English, I would say I. In the origins of the word ego, it's the same thing. It's I. It's me as an individual. That individualistic perspective, which is very much part of Western thinking, places our individual personality front and foremost. And so that is actually seen within this practice as a hindrance. That my view, my wishes, my goals, all of those things, when we focus energies on that, we are becoming ignorant, we're becoming trapped by desire, hate. We don't develop when our focus is on that. That is a huge, huge difference between Western thinking and this kind of ideology. Letting go of the individual. It's counterintuitive to me. It's counterintuitive to most people, I think, raised in Western cultures where we've been told all our lives to go for our goals, to stretch to become the best person I can be, and letting go of that. And that doesn't mean a practice of being subservient. You don't become a slave to everybody else. It's letting go of the deep attachment that we have to ourselves that would then allow us to move forward into a deeper understanding of the universe. And you thought this class was just about personality. This is great stuff to dip your toe into. We're not looking for converts. We're looking for people to deep think about these things. And what is the applicability of these things in your life right now? What meaning would these have right now to kind of take a step back and practice some of these things yourself? So the discussion is on the Noble Truths and Eightfold Path. The quiz is on the 5 hindrances. And due this week is also the Chapter 11 assignment on mindfulness. Look at that. We're talking about mindfulness from this perspective, and we're bringing back that app or whatever you decided to do to engage in some mindful practice. Maybe you can even look at some of that reflection and using that as part of your quiz answer for the 5 hindrances, and where, no, not the 5 hindrances, the other path, the mindfulness, the actual Eightfold Path. See, this is all new to me too. It really is. So let's have some fun with this in the discussion. Let's have some fun with this in the quiz. Please post questions, share your experiences with these things, and I will see you in the discussion boards, and have a great week.